think we have something here. There's our sound guys back there. Maybe you're not on. Let's see. You're on here, 1, 2.
Okay, so we're ready to start.
Okay.
Good? Yeah. Okay. Hopefully. Let's see. Start it. Oh, come on. There we go.
Ναι. Πολύ ωραία. Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I hear a bass. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Before we start, I wanted to let you all know that if you want translation, there's translation devices right on the corner, and you can get a translation device. Let me see am I on?
We need to have her mic on, so she's going to test it for a while. Meanwhile, I'm going to try to talk.
I can hear you very well. I can hear you very well. I can hear you well.
Wow, magic.
Right. Okay. I'm not sure my mic is on, but I'm going to go for it. I hear it now. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Louder,
Okay,
please,
a
back
little
there.
bit louder.
We have
Thank
some
you.
requests for louder.
My name is Limor Tomer, and it's been my great honor to serve as this year's performance curator for Metamorphosis, the SNFCC's June events. 4 days of extraordinary energy and creativity here in the SNFCC. I've been incredibly inspired and humbled by the beauty of this site and the building, the sense of democracy that I feel, the sense of openness, the vision, and the sheer ambition of this extraordinary space. Andreas Drakopoulos, the co-president of the SNF, says cultural institutions become relevant by means of their relationship with the communities they serve. It is the public that provides the purpose. So it's not so much like Hollywood, if you build it, they will come. It's if they come, we will have purpose and meaning, and you're coming, and that is very, very meaningful to me as a visitor to Athens. And so, to me, it's really all about the audience, and we've had 2 days of performances, 2.5 days, and the audience has just been amazing, spectacular. Tonight we're here to not hear from me, but to hear from 2 artists who have a lot in common. They're both fearless. They are both extremely multi-talented and multifaceted. They have both changed the course of the culture around them, and they're great, and they're both amazing storytellers. The June event's guiding spirit and guest artist, Laurie Anderson, is a musician, artist, filmmaker, poet, writer, storyteller. And personally, for me and for so many of us, the world changed in 1981 when we were all hit with the power and energy and genius of Oh Superman and everything that came since then. And interestingly, our guest Lina Nicolacopoulou also had a big year in 1981. So it was a big year for both of our amazing artists, and both of them bring an intense and provocative, densely poetic and unconventional practice to their craft. So before I turn it over to Laurie and to Lina, I just want to express my deepest gratitude to the SNFCC, to the amazing staff here, to Laurie, of course, to Lina, and most of all to the audience, the people of Athens, for supporting this extraordinary moment and this extraordinary building. So now I'm going to ask our guests to take it away and to begin the conversation from the jumping off point of Metamorphosis, which I have a feeling they know something about. And also in about 40 minutes, I will open the floor to questions. So.
Okay. So, you can listen to me, eh?
¿Me ακούτε, υποθέτω?
My bad English, but I really know what I want to ask. So, I'm very glad for being here, both of you, because it's very important for us, let's say, for our first steps here, to have the knowledge, the experience, and the talent that you have. So please, dear Laurie, tell us some things about that project, but the possibility also of a metamorphosis.
Well, first of all, Lina and I met when we were on the committee for the opening ceremony of the Olympics here in Athens.
Olympic.
We laughed nonstop for like 2 years or something, like a long time. And it was so much fun doing this. Where's Dimitris? Are you here? Yeah, there's Dimitris, our chief. Stand up, Dimitris, the chief of the opening ceremony of Athens. He did such a beautiful job. He did such a beautiful job. And it was a privilege for me to work with my colleagues, wonderful Greek artists and thinkers. And tonight, at the beginning of the concert, I'm going to talk a little bit about our experience. I hope that's okay. It was a crazy one because we tried to represent big ideas in ways that were immediate. You couldn't argue with them. You were just like, oh, okay. And I love this kind of being in the present. So when Limor and I were talking about this idea of metamorphosis, this is an idea that's very, very important to me. That we're not really here right now. We're some version of changes, happening that we happen to be aware at that moment. But I probably should have said that later in the night, that I don't think that we're actually here, but that's okay. Anyway, it also connects to me with being in the present, the idea of change. Being in the present, and so I tried to study that as a musician and as a person. So tonight, for example, I'll play with a cellist, and we're really improvising music. And this is kind of scary for me in certain ways, because he hits one note and it's like, I've never heard that note before. And it's a brown note, and I'm like, what is that note? And then I have to answer with something yellow, like, and these, and we build, it's like building a big ship in the air, and you make this thing out of notes, and you turn it around, and you look at it, and you can move it, and then you can, off you go. So there's something very exciting for me about making something that isn't just, reading from a paper or something, trying to perfect something you did before, and I mean, I like that as well, but so the idea of many of the things that are happening in the festival is change. And it's a crazy day, because the world is suddenly in the middle of something very, very unstable. Very unstable. And I'm going to, the British got a little role in the show tonight. I just gave them a little shout out to our British friends who are like, huh, what? We have to feel a little sorry for them. They're so shocked. I mean, so as you think, well, now what? Now what does the world look like? You get your story and you have your picture of the world, and it's sort of stable, and then it goes boom, and it flies apart. And you think, who am I? What am I now? I had this picture, this story, and that was a story I told myself about the world and where I was in the world and who I was and what my country was, and suddenly, and one more thing before you say something, because I want you to say something about this as well, is I just got a message from a friend in London. He says that all of his friends are petitioning for London to leave the UK and become a city-state. And I said, wait a second, we'll join you in New York, you know, we like the idea. You know, why, just because you live in a city, or do you have so much in common with the rest of the people there? I have more in common with people in Gothenburg, Sweden, in Amsterdam, in Warsaw, than I do with people in Indiana. Because I travel on the road of music and art, and that is a different connection, that's a different map. It's not political countries, it's a map of art. And it would be so amazing if all of the cities who liked art, you know, Athens, New York, we'll let Berlin come in, Paris, and we make a kind of federation of art, you know, other ways to connect the world other than just money. So, because I think I am very happy when I come into a place where I feel understood. I'm with other people who like music, who like to see something like, whoa, weird. And so that's the real connection that we have in the world. So we'll see when you have this kind of upheaval, it's full of opportunity, as you were saying. You used that word when we were just talking about this a minute ago, and I thought, yeah, that's it. It's not destruction, it's opportunity. And so you had some other things you were wanting to direct the conversation towards.
I would like you to read us a poem that I'm very fond of, that it's the beginning of memory, and it's from Homeland, isn't it? So please, give us this great poem.
In 2008, I was here doing a concert called Homeland, and it was, tell me the name of the theater.
It is Ornithes. Ornithes, Aristophanes.
The theater.
Badminton. Badminton. The theater.
No, the one, I don't...
In Erodium Theater?
Yeah, Erodium.
Okay, Erodium Theater.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we were doing the lights at night, because like last night we were working on the lights here until, I don't know, 6 a.m. because it's such a pleasure under the full moon, and you have a theater there, and you start working on lights and color, and there's no more fun to be had, you know. So anyway, when we were working on the lights in the theater in 2008 at night, the stone benches had been heating up. They were so hot, and in the evening they cooled down. We could sit there and look at the moon. The moon was almost full last night, and design the lights. During the show, which the sunlight is just going away, the sun is setting, I had read something about, from Aristophanes, a little story about a lark. Now, this is a footnote in the birds. It was like, it's just a notation that says, oh, you know, that, like the story of the lark. And I said, what story of the lark? I'm not Greek, I don't know the place in that way to know what a footnote represents the story of a lark. So it turns out the story of a lark is an Aesop's fable about a little bird. So I wrote a little summary of that story, and I'm going to read it to you. And here's how it goes. There's some violin in the background, but you can just picture that. Imagine that. So there's a story in an ancient play about birds called The Birds. And it's a short story from before the world began. From a time when there was no earth, no land, only air and birds everywhere. But the thing was, there was no place to land because there was no land. So they just circled around and around because this was before the world began. And the sound was deafening. Songbirds were everywhere, billions and billions and billions of birds. And one of these birds was a lark. And one day her father died. And this was a really big problem because what should they do with the body? There was no place to put the body because there was no earth. And finally, the lark had a solution. She decided to bury her father in the back of her own head. And this was the beginning of memory. Because before this, no one could remember a thing. They were just constantly flying in circles, constantly flying in huge circles. So, just a note about when we were making the light setting for this sound, and during this show, and during this song, thousands of birds came flocking into the theater like this and all around it, and everybody started laughing. It was hilarious. It was how do you set that up? That's not easy a theatrical effect to do. So it was really exciting. Tonight I'm going to do a part 2 to this because I'm going to, and I hope this isn't just really idiotic, but I love the plot of that play. And of course it's a comedy about building a wall. It's about building a wall between earth and heaven. And because wall building is a big theme in our moment of keeping people out and letting them in, and what a wall represents, and what it is to be, defining your country, your territory, and who you keep out, who you let in. I'm going to dedicate that to Donald Trump because he's also doing a kind of comedy about a wall. He's expecting to send the bill for the construction of the wall between the U.S. and Mexico. He expects to send the bill to the Mexicans. This is his plan. It's improvised plan, but he's thinking, they should pay for it. So we'll see how that works out. So anyway, I'm going to tell a story of tonight of some of the ways that these poets are trying to talk to the birds and convince them to build this wall, which is, I find this a very, very relevant, beautiful play that is exactly about who we are right now. And it's so, I find it irresistible to kind of be here in Athens without quoting some of the amazing ideas that have been made their ways into the plays.
So, I want to ask you something. I read recently a book of the professor of Athens University, Communication and Culture, named Vasilis Karapostolis. And the title of the book is The Courage That Is Sleeping. The Courage That Is Sleeping. Yes. And these, let's say, we can say, are letters to a young man that for the first time in his life faces problems with his business, let's say, with family, with his love. So, you travel around the world. You can smell the energy of not only Europe, but everywhere. Do you feel that the courage is slipping of the Western people, let's say, most of all?
I do feel that there's a kind of energy that is around now that I see in, well, I saw first maybe in Madrid, in the first Occupy movement, and then I watched that spread to New York and to many other places in the world, and it's and even now, many people in the United States it's quite a mess there, as you might know. But there's also, on the other side, a lot of energy of people who are thinking like, we can't just keep doing this stuff. We really have to think about where we're going. So the Occupy movement has some of those ideas. A candidate like Bernie Sanders has some of those ideas. But I feel that there's a lot of positive thinking and a lot of energy that's pushing this. And so I, for one, am grateful when things break. I think it's a powerful moment. It wakes you up, you know, and it interrupts your story. So it gives you a chance to evaluate your story and what it is. Later tonight, Limor also asked me to show a film that I made called The Heart of a Dog. And that's also, it's a film about stories. Why you make your own story, what its purpose is. Because we're asked now to frame ourselves, whether it's for Facebook or not. You say who I am and what I, you know, and very quick, almost like a product, almost like you're selling yourself, you know. So you're forced to, you know, become this commodity. And so that's one kind of story. And the other kinds of stories are the ones that you use to represent you. Someone says, what kind of kid were you? And you have one or two stories you pull out to say that, but they are only cartoons. So when you think of how to learn who you are, you do that through stories. So it's a film about that. And it's a film about opposites also, trying to see both sides of, I mean, not that there are two sides of stories, there are thousands of sides to stories. But I try to put some of the words of some of my teachers in the film, because for me, I am and always will be a student. And I am only as good as the teachers I find. So I try very hard to find very, 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 very good teachers. And I try to say, teach me that. How can I learn that? How can I do that? And one of my teachers, so I put his words in the middle of the film, is a guy named Mingyur Rinpoche. He's a Tibetan guy. And as you know, maybe the Tibetans are almost like the Catholics of the Buddhist world. They have a lot of costumes and hats and ornaments and very elaborate, you know, it's not a simple Zen thing, it's like elaborate, it's elaborate. But he is a very, very intelligent person, because, I mean, his methods for finding out who you are very sharp, and he gives you very, very, very sharp tools to try to find that. So, for example, in the middle of the movie, there is one thing that he says that I find very helpful. He says, try to practice how to feel sad without being sad. And I think this is a very important thing to try. You know, there are many, many sad things in the world. And if you pretend they're not there, you're an idiot. They're there. They're really there. And they will come and get you, and they'll come and find you, you know, in the night. So the idea is to look at these things, accept them, and then, according to him, don't become them. Don't become them. You know, because according to him, the reason we are here is to be very, 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 very happy. Happiness is the goal of humankind. Happiness. And that is, and not the kind of just like, hey, but I mean, he's talking about joy. He's talking about the best piece of music you ever heard, the best piece of pie you ever had, you know, to just appreciate the fact that we get to be here. So this other stuff that's going on, not so important, you know. So anyway, some of those things you kind of go, I don't know, I mean, really. But then he will show you, you know, ways to think about that, ways to how to feel about it, how to find your way into something difficult, like how to feel sad without being sad. Anyway, I think I try then with other teachers as well to say what I learned from them, and you know, say, well, you could check that out or that out, because I feel that art is one way to be on the same frequency with other people, and that so that it's a good way to have that kind of learning transmitted, let's say, in some way. You know, whether it's, and it can just be, I've felt that without any words too, you know, just go and you hear somebody play or watch them dance and you go, that's freedom. That's somebody who's just going for it, you know, and that's also what festivals are for me, you know, you get a chance to bring people in that you wouldn't necessarily maybe go to see normally. Let's say, I mean, when I go to festivals in New York, I get to see a collection of people from many places around the world, and it changes my way of seeing things. So I want to thank Limor for making such an eclectic mix. I mean, this is really a crazy collection of people she put together here, you know. So I hope you take advantage of this wonderful opportunity to see something that is very different from, you know how it is. You get into your little pattern. If you're a rock and roll fan, you have rock and roll clothes, and you go to rock and roll clubs, and you hear rock and roll music. You know, you don't go to the opera. But you know, if the Chinese opera came to New York a while ago, and one of my friends who's like a rock and roll guy, he's like, he went and he saw the Peking opera, and he went, I love Chinese opera. That's what I really love. That's the only thing I'm like, you know. He would never have gone to that thing without a festival, without a chance to see something that gets him out of his normal, small street. So that's what festivals are for, and that's what they're really important. And that's what we're doing here in this incredible building, is opening to the world. And this, you know, Limor is part of this, and of course the foundation is an incredible opportunity for, they have a real mandate to do that. So that you're so lucky to have this incredible thing, and just to be here at its very beginning. I think it's just opening now, right? It's pretty much. Did you come here before today?
No, it's the first, my
It's
very
your first time.
first time.
First time
Yes.
ever, yeah.
And this is from you.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
because I would like to meet you today, and also to see all this treasure, all this treasure that happens here. I would like you to tell us a short story about your visit on the magnetic pole.
And the where?
The magnetic pole, the North Pole.
yeah.
Please tell us, because it's very important what you felt there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I really like to try to do things that I don't know how to do. So one summer it was so hot in New York, it was just. I decided I wish I was at the North Pole, and so I thought, why not go to the North Pole? And so I packed up all of these things. Fishing gear, and like 6 months supply of bannock. It's this kind of flour and lard stuff. And I went out onto Housen Street next to where I live, and where are you going? North Pole. Okay. And I hitchhiked to the North Pole. No, this is like there are two North Poles, as you probably know: geographic North Pole and the magnetic North Pole. So the geographic is farther and more difficult, and more surveillance, so you can't really get there. Magnetic, I didn't get there either, but I got pretty close. I got a couple 100 miles from it. So I don't know what to tell you about this, but let's see. At one point, I was camping, and I'd seen pictures of the Northern Lights, but until you see the Northern Lights, you can't imagine them. So I looked up, and I was alone camping, and suddenly the sky is like full of red and purple and violet waves going like this, like underwater, and I thought, there's been a nuclear disaster, and I'm the only one left in all of North America. What am I gonna? It was really like that. And it took me 2 weeks before I found a French geology expedition. And I said, so how are you surviving? And they're like, fine. We're having some nice wine. You want to come in the tent? And so, anyway, I finally went back because of my hatchet. And what happened was, I was chopping some wood, and the hatchet fell out of my hand, but on the upswing. And I did what you should never, ever do. I looked up, and it came up, you know, just like, you know, missed my head. I was like, and that's when I turned back out of fear. I wish I hadn't done that. But anyway, it was a part of a series of projects that he did to try to get out of my rut. So I would do a lot of things, like also for a while I worked in McDonald's, and it was quite a weird experience because I was working mostly with Chinese people, and they said they're very ethnic. You know, they would kind of go, "So, what are you?" And I was like, "I'm a worker." I don't know. They said, "No, I mean, are you like, where are you from?" And I was like, and I have a complicated mixture. I'm some Swedish, some Irish, some Scottish, and I started saying, "I'm Swedish and Irish and Scottish," and they're like, they couldn't. That was too complicated. They're like, and I said, "You mean you're German, right?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm Swedish and Irish." "You mean like German, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm basically German, you know." And so after that, they called me the German, and they said, "Have the German get that cup. Have the German mop that up. Have the German get that thing." And I was like, and I have to say that, you know, thinking of myself as German got the job done a lot faster. You know, so I was like, hey, so anyway, another job was taking went to visit. I'm a wirehead. I like electronics. I use a lot of electronics. But you know how it is when you burn out on that stuff. You have to stop because it will eat you. You know, it's reading your email 100 times a day. So I thought I'm going to go someplace with zero technology. So I went to an Amish farm. I thought this is going to be an amazing place because they have zero technology. They use wheels and wind from 400 years ago. Nothing more recent than that. And they're growing things, and you know. But I went there, and so the Amish family it's raining. So we sat in the kitchen and waited for the rain to stop. It was 2 weeks while we were sitting in the rain, you know, waiting. And they had a little, a father, a mother, and a little boy named Aguilan, Spanish for North Wind. And little North Wind never stopped screaming for 2 weeks, just, you know, and we were going crazy. The raining and the screaming, and then once in a while the rain would stop, once in a while the screaming would stop, and then the mother would say, you know, she would say, "David, you know I told you never to speak to me that way." And I was like, no one had said anything for hours. So I was like, what's going on? And David, he's tuned to another station. He's like, you know, he wished he was just somewhere else. So anyway, then one day, so the grandma comes. This is a big event because it's just the 4 of us for weeks in the rain. Grandma comes, and she's like, she's always trying to get Aguilan to kiss her. She goes, "Aguilan, come to Grandma, give Grandma a kiss. Come on, give her one kiss." And Aguilan's, "No." She goes, "No, come on, just one kiss. You just come over here and give one kiss." And finally he's being hounded, and he says, "Okay, I'll give you a kiss when we're in the living room," which I think it feels safe to him because we've been in the kitchen for 2 weeks. You know, we're probably not going to get to the living room ever. And so finally we do go into the living room, and the grandma is there going, "Okay, everyone, we're in the living room now." And you see this look of panic on this little, you know, guy, and he realizes that, and he drags himself over like slow motion, just a little boy, and he puts his mouth to her cheek, and you see this amazing thing, this tiny boy who had just learned to kiss without affection, to kiss as a part of a deal. And I thought, this is an amazing thing to see. People who are, in a way, choking on their own goodness. You know, they are trying so hard to be good that they're just going crazy. You know, I said, get me back to New York where people just go, fuck you. You know, it's just like, you know, express themselves, you know, like just say, I don't like this. I don't think, well, let's do another thing. No, they were like so repressed. And I thought, this is farm life? Wow, this is really terrible. So anyway, I had a lot of my preconceptions blown apart about what was, you know, idyllic and bucolic and relaxing and nice, and what was not. And, you know, we have this idea of, if I lived in the country, you know, birds chirping and everything like that, everyone would be sweet and everything would be soft and nice. And really, you know, we carry this everywhere we are. So it's what we are. It's not has something to do with the birds and the, you know, and the rain. So anyway, I tried to put myself into these situations where I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I was awkward, and I was, you know, I just tried to get out of myself and try not to always be, you know, doing what was expected of me, you know, because everybody puts you in a box. They say, you're not acting like yourself. You go, really? Well, do I have to play this part the rest of my life for you? You know, so it was an attempt to get out of that, we create our personalities, and of course we inherit a lot of things from our parents. I'm very much like my parents in many ways. But we also design ourselves, and I see this as a kind of design problem, that when something happens, for example, and you want to scream, you just want to, ah! But you say, you know, I'm really not the kind of person who would scream. I'm not a screamer. Don't do that. But problem is, you still want to scream. So this is a kind of design problem. So if you go back and you think, and you just make this design a little bit bigger, and you design yourself as someone who could scream if you want to. You know, but not like a person who can never scream. That's me. You know, be a little more generous. You know, be a little weirder, be a little crazier. Give yourself more room. It's more fun to not to be trapped in your own self-created trap. Because you're the designer here. Go back and change the design. Make it into something else that's more comfortable for you, that you like better. Because nobody, you know, I talk to a lot of young artists and they say, you know, I would love to be an artist, but artists are Van Gogh. There are people like, I couldn't call myself an artist, but what people think, and they say, you know, I have to tell you something. Not many people care what you call yourself or what you do. You know, just, you know, think about it. If you don't care that much about what somebody does, if they call themselves an artist, knock yourself out. But, you know, and it's the same with them. So a lot of people use this as an excuse not to do what they want. What would people say? Nothing, really, you know. I mean, of course, for a second, there's a lot of tweeting and like, guess what, which is idiotic, you know. I wish social media was something else.
So maybe it's time to give the permission.
Yeah, we have a plan.
Right on time.
Yeah.
I have questions.
So if you have questions, we would love to hear from you. Yes.
Would you like a mic? We have some mics right here. Here's one coming towards you.
Do you have any songs that you've made that kind of particularly reflects or resembles that idea of metamorphosis?
Oh,
And it's a two-part question, so that's the first, and after I have another question, or second part.
Probably every song that I've ever written is that, is something about change. But one of the ones that comes to mind is something called Transitory Life, and it's a series of little short stories about becoming one thing and becoming part of a cycle that's always changing into things, and trying to lose the idea of the importance of continuity. So there's that song, but really many of them have to do with, let's say, time in terms of change, and one is the Novartis Angel song, where the story of why am I blanking on his name? The philosopher Walter Benjamin, and who wrote a beautiful thing about the angel of the future, and so that became the second part of a song that I wrote about progress, which was quoting that idea of progress. And so it started out with a little retelling of a fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel. And I know that's, do you have Hansel and Gretel here? And the witch
Yes.
and all of that?
Yes.
And it's a kind of forest nightmare story, but it looks at Hansel and Gretel's life, who were eaten by a witch much later. And let's say they survived. And so Hansel and Gretel are alive and well, and they're living in Berlin. She's a cocktail waitress, and he had a part in a Fassbinder film. And they sit alone at night now, drinking schnapps and gin. And she says, Hansel, you're really bringing me down. And he says, Gretel, you can really be a bitch. He says, I've wasted my life on our stupid legend when my one and only love was the Wicked Witch. Okay, so we look at them later, and what happened to them. Of course, many cartoon characters don't have a life after they've been eaten by a witch, but you can do anything in a song, you know. So then it goes on to quote the Walter Benjamin, and let me see if I can remember that. He said, what is history? And she said, history is an angel being blown backwards into the future. He said, history is a pile of debris, and the angel wants to go back and fix things, to repair the things that have been broken. But there's a storm blowing from paradise, and the storm keeps blowing the angel backwards into the future. And this storm is called progress. So that's a meeting of the two stories of, and I love arguments. I love, as you can see, people who are giving two sides of the story. And just kind of like, yeah, no, I think, and I like the energy of that. I mean, I like monologues, but the energy of two sides going, chuk, 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 chuk. We have a novelist, a writer called F. Scott Fitzgerald, and he addressed this idea of opposites. He said, try to, and he's giving advice to young writers. So he said, try to imagine you have two ideas, one in each hand, both absolutely true and both absolutely the opposite of each other. And try to hold those two things without going crazy. And that's what writing is. You know, you don't have to synthesize it. You don't have to say, yes, and there's the truth up there. Well, guess what? They both may have this burden that holds you down on both sides. They're both very true and very opposite. So we as human beings have the ability to understand that and hold things like that. You know, and we are unique in that. And I think if there's anything that I could say to say the difference between humans and, let's say, dogs, who I adore, and is this ability to deal with change and with opposites. So it's a skill that as you I think begin to use it more and more, especially I think when writers use this, you can see what's going on in their writing sometimes, how they're doing this kind of thing. thing, and giving you this problem, and you conceive it as a problem because it's like opposites. What am I going to do? They're opposite. They're opposite. How do I deal with these two opposites? And it gives you many ways into dealing with those two opposites. So I find that very fascinating.
Okay.
But you have to be balanced in order. You have to be balanced in order to find.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
And this is something I would like you to tell. That in Buddhism, let's say, there is one rule: to be aware.
Yes.
So this is something that an artist also needs,
Yeah. Exactly.
isn't it?
Do you have another question? Yes, please.
Right here. Here's your microphone.
Mic is coming. Oh, oops.
First of all, I wanted to thank you because you've changed our way of listening. I say that as a composer, and I want to say that it was the same thing, not the same feeling, but the same changing when I heard your music and Stockhausen music or Ligeti. I don't compare music because it's different genres, but for me, yes, it is. Sorry.
Τα ακούμε, δεν είναι στα αυτιά σας.
I was saying that the impact of your music, it was for us, has the same impact as Stockhausen music and Ligeti and Xenakis, and also other composers that I forgot. Okay. May I repeat it? Do I have to repeat that? Twice. Okay, now a question, but a question which is a joke. What about your plans with NASA? Do you plan to be the first performer or composer to play in space?
But thank you for that comment about Stockhausen. That's one of my favorite composers, and I think you'll hear us trying once in a while to refer to Stockhausen tonight.
Helicopter?
In the duet, yeah.
Helicopter quartet?
Yeah, oh, well no, maybe not that one. That's pretty elaborate. This is low budget thing.
We had a drone last night. We had a drone.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get 4 drones.
Yeah, four drones. Yeah. I used some drones in a show a couple of years ago, and they were coming down around the musicians and looking around, and then they all blew into the river. So that was the last time I used them. Whoa! They just blew in and sank. So the NASA thing. It was a quick story because I have to get soon to the sound check. But I was having a bad day in the studio. Nothing was working. I was like, this is. And the phone rang, and the guy says, "Hello, I'm from NASA, and we want you to be the first artist in residence at NASA." And I was like, "You're not from NASA." I just hung up the phone. I was like, because when someone calls you with your dream come true scenario, you don't necessarily believe them. But anyway, they called again and again, and I called them and said, "Are you serious? What do you mean? What do you mean, artist in residence at NASA, at a space program? Where do you go? What is it? What's the residence part? And they said they didn't know what it meant, and what did I think it meant? I said, "Who are you people? What are you calling me?" So I had a job, I didn't know what it was. Vague, completely vague. So I thought, NASA is already making gigantic works of art, Stairway to Space, a space elevator. They make, you go into one room and it's a 10,000, you know how in business rooms they have like corporate rooms, they have the whiteboard and they're planning out the business plan for the next 5 years. And they had a business plan for going to, it was a 10,000 year business plan for going to Mars. Because this is where we will go. It's the nearest place, it's the most suitable for humans. So the beginnings of making it habitable for the human race are happening, and it's called the greening of Mars, and we're putting oxygen. We're already doing this cooperatively with many countries, putting oxygen and making it and chlorophyll, and making it habitable. Now that we know so much about taking care of planets, we're going to take care of Mars. We did such a good job here, didn't we? Oh yeah, no one could breathe, no one could, we're running out of sand. I just read that in the paper. We're running out of sand. I thought, you think sand, how could, but there are so many gigantic new Chinese cities that every one of these cities requires something like a 16th of the world's supply of sand in that area. We're running out. I hadn't thought of it like that. So anyway, another metamorphosis anyway. So I did this job for a while, and I just made it up. I invented it. I thought I'm going to be a fly on the wall and just see what's going on. And then I think because I have a reputation as a multimedia artist, they thought I would do some big, sexy techno project, like bounce light from one satellite onto another satellite onto the dark side of the moon, like, yeah. So when I said, I'm going to write a long poem, they were like, a poem? Why? They were very disappointed. And I'm there with my artist in resident badge, and everybody's too busy to talk to me. The robotics. And if they saw my badge, they go, "Artist, do we have one? Why?" So the guys who had a lot of time to talk with the nanotechnologists, and these are the guys who, let's say, they're the theoreticians. They just have, they're the people who say, "Why are we going to do that?" And then they're working in the infinitesimally tiny. They're nanotechnologists. So we had time to talk, and they would say things that were so interesting to me, because I realized also artists and scientists have a lot more in common than I thought, because we work the same way. They don't know what they're looking for either. First of all, they don't know. They don't
Big
know.
science.
Yeah. So and they look for it in the same way. We're like, we make something and we go, what is it? And then you change it and what is that? It's just the same method. And then we have the same problem at the end. When is it finished? So in order to know when it's finished, you have to know what you're making. So it's a cycle like that. And so we were talking about these kinds of problems and situations, and they would always cite Einstein, and they would say, Einstein rejected some of his most well-known theories. Why? Because they weren't beautiful. You're thinking, what does that mean for a scientist to say that? What is he really looking for? So if you speculate, for Einstein, this could be something more what beauty would be in that context. Symmetry is number one. Why is this so important? And you realize it's a very Western aesthetic. We're in the capital of symmetry right now. We have two columns. We have, everything is mirrored. Everything has a proportional thing that's very symmetrical. Symmetry is extremely important to the Western aesthetic. Why? Because we have a bicameral brain, 2 legs, 2 arms. Not sure. But if you take this idea, this rhyming idea, in which you have something and something that looks like it, and that makes it better, why? You take that idea to Japan, and they have the haiku. Their answer is the haiku. The haiku is not a poem that compares something to something else. No, they don't have this double system of this rhymes with that. They have one thing. So they have a poem that goes, cloudy morning, the puppeteer is coughing into his sleeve. It's the end of the poem. It's not like it's like something else. It just invokes a moment, and there you are. So haiku is an essentially different system of aesthetics. It invokes the single moment with its intensity. So anyway, just to conclude, because we have to wrap it up, I was not only the first artist in residence at NASA, I was also the last. So a senator, we have the senators, the Congress and the NASA people are enemies. They hate each other. The government and NASA, no, they don't talk. It's like the eggheads and the sports guys. So they're reviewing the budget of NASA, and they're like, okay, 35 trillion for surveillance satellites, good. 40 billion for new drone technology, excellent. $20,000 for artist in residence, this is like whistleblowing, this is an outrage. What are we doing spending money like that? So I'm gone. I'm trying to get it back because, not for myself, because but I think it's really important that artists, I think it would be important to have an artist at NASA. I think it would be important to have an artist in residence in Congress, an artist in residence in the White House, an artist in residence in the Supreme Court. Artists think differently about the world, and I think the more that it's appropriate that we participate in the structures. Now, for a lot of artists, that has zero interest, but I think to represent that point of view is also very important. So anyway, that hasn't happened. We don't have a department of art. We have a department of war. We have a department of health. But recently, I was at the Kennedy Center, and I was out there. This will be the last thing I'll say. Somebody called me up and said, "I have tickets for your show at the Kennedy Center." I said, "What show at the Kennedy Center?" I'd forgotten I had one. And so I remembered a letter that I had gotten from Jack Kennedy when I was a kid. And the way it worked was...
You were a kid?
Yeah, when I was 12, I sent Senator Kennedy, he was running for president in the Wisconsin primaries. And I sent him a letter saying, "Dear Senator Kennedy, I really admire the way you're running your campaign in Wisconsin. I'm running for student council president, and I would like some advice." 12, you're such a punk, It's just, I'm very self-important. And he wrote me a long letter with a number of pieces of information. And one of them was, which I'll never forget, the most important one, find out what the students want and promise it. In other words, don't be an ideologue. Be a representative of the people. Tell that to the Brexit people. Representative of this people speak. Maybe it's better, I don't know, that's another subject. So anyway, 2 months later, I wrote a letter back to him. I said, "Dear Senator Kennedy, thank you so much for your advice. I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to you sooner. I've been very busy. I won my election, and best wishes in yours." Okay, so then the next thing this guy does is he sends me to a 12-year-old kid in Glen Ellen, Illinois, a box of long 12 red roses and a telegram that says congratulations. And of course this is headlines on our local paper, the Glen Ellen News. "Local girl receives roses from Jack Kennedy." And every woman in town is like, "Jack, oh, Jack." So he was, anyway, we went to the Kennedy Center and played, and after that they gave me a little book and of his sayings, of quotations of Jack Kennedy. And I will treasure this the rest of my life. I had forgotten all about this idea. He said, "The heart of the nation is poetry and art. This is what we are here for. This is what inspires us and drives us." And I was like, who has said that since or before? So when I got here and saw this thing here, such a huge thing with a library and an opera house and a park and a canal, I thought, oh, this is. If only Jack Kennedy could see this, because this is a really wonderful model of how culture can become part of the city in a way that's really integral and is really the heart of it, because he really had that right. It's not the weapons we have. And of course, that's our main industry is weapons. We don't really say that so clearly sometimes, but that's basically what runs the United States, is weapon design and the weapons industry. That's not the heart of our country. And so when you think, what do you do as people and what is the heart of your country? What makes it important to be a citizen in that place? I think of Jack and how he put that into words and was unable to realize it, really. So I think the wonderful thing about libraries and what people say from the past is that it can inspire us to think, what could we do to build on that idea? What could we, as people alive half a century later, think about, in terms of that?
We want to thank both of you for being here, and we want to be free now for your sound check, and to enjoy you at 9:30.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We're so happy for being here. Thank you for
Thank you, Lina.
It was nice. It was, they are first. Yes.